Brought it back out. I brought out the beautiful X60 once again. This is once again what I'm using. I was using this as a daily driver for the longest time, but I stopped. I started using my X30 instead, or X30, no way, X230 instead. But I thought this thing needed some more love, and frankly, it's comfier to use than the X230, even though the X230 does have more modern functionality. There we go. Now it wants to work. Hello. Bro, I've been here in this exact situation so many times. I've been just like this dude right here. 3 episodes into Rosen Maiden so far, and the show happens to be pretty good. I'm not sure why I didn't watch this show sooner, given how much I liked the characters and the premise and the aesthetic. I tried watching the first episode years ago. I mean, I tried watching it once, like 7 years ago, and it didn't work out. Or it's like 8 or 9 years ago, actually. And then I tried watching it again like 6 years ago, and I still couldn't get past the first episode, which is really weird because I'm watching it now and I'm loving every minute of it. Like, this is a great show. Frankly, I have no idea what was preventing me from watching it at the time, but 3 episodes in, and it's very good. I feel like this show is doing something that is quite common in anime that feature neets or hikikomori, because if you don't know, Rasen Maiden is a show with a hikikomori protagonist who becomes embroiled in a very strange situation after a magic doll is suddenly delivered to his door, where he comes to find this entire world of living dolls which happen to be fighting one another using magic. Their life force is drawn from these hosts that they find in the real world, and when they do that, when they get these hosts, they basically they basically have one of two options. They can continue fighting to try and take on the energy of the dolls that they kill, or they can die. Jesus Christ, I'm tired. But the dynamic is kind of odd in this show because the main doll, Shinku, is not actually killing a lot of the other dolls. What she's instead choosing to do is share the life force of her host, which is the Hiki character, with these other dolls. And it makes for kind of a strange situation. And throughout the show, he has to interact with these dolls because he's bound to, one of them. And as a result of that, he is getting more and more out of his shell. He is trying to get out of the house more and more. And as the show goes on, there's these various episodes where they're like trying to give examples of how being a neet or a hiki is so bad, and they're trying to show how the lifestyle is damaging for him and things like that. And it's interesting to me because I feel like shows that have these themes or that feature these characters are so beloved by the community that I'm in, by the people who are in a similar situation to me, both in Japan and in the US, and I would imagine other places. And it's interesting to me because a lot of these shows tend to moralize quite strongly about the lifestyle that we lead, but I think part of the reason why they end up meaning so much to us is because of representation. That, even though there are these messages in the show, or in these kinds of shows, that tend to be, I wouldn't say anti-neat. Sometimes they are anti-neat, but they tend to be very critical of neats and the lifestyle. And um, I think often the reason why we like these shows is just because they happen to be about people that are like us and in the anime form. Um, there's other aspects of these shows that also appeal, but I think that's the really big thing. And I find that dynamic kind of interesting because I think with a lot of other communities, the standards would be a little bit higher, but um, there's almost something kind of quintessentially neat about, just being on the internet and enjoying, I don't want to say mediocre stuff because I really like these shows. Um, I really like the Chaos Head visual novel. I really like Rosen Maiden. I really like Welcome to the NHK. Um, and there's some other ones as well. Watamote is not really a neat anime in my opinion, but um, there's several of them that are out there, and I I feel like there is something quintessentially neat about liking stuff that doesn't really check every box, or it has some flaws, or it's not perfect. I think this relates to what I was talking about in my last video, where I was talking about chans and chan culture, why I'm a channer, stuff like that. And what I said in that video was part of what makes me a channer is the fact that I literally like mediocre or low effort posts. In addition to effort posts, in addition to good ones, I also like a lot of the bad stuff, or a lot of the inflammatory stuff, or a lot of the stuff that's just bait. Like, I like all that stuff. And um, I think that sort of celebration and enjoyment of mediocrity also relates to what I'm talking about with otaku. The kind of, specifically like otaku neats, the kind of people who really enjoy these kinds of shows, that enjoy shows like Rosin Maiden. I think there's something there. Okay, so we're doing another one of these. Yeah, I've been doing some hard thinking about the cell phone once again. After watching this video from a random YouTuber. Um God, it's so late for me. I'm trying right now to stay up past my bedtime so that I can actually wake up the next day successfully. Um and I'm having trouble doing it, to be honest. I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to make it all the way there to the end, but it's tough. But making this video is a part of that process because I'm keeping myself awake by recording this. But yeah, basically, I watched this video of this woman going through some videos from the internet of people talking about how they don't have any hobbies, either because they think having a hobby is cringe, or because they spend so much time on their phone that if they were to talk about having a hobby, it would basically be them compensating for something, because it's not true. And well, I found this kind of interesting because I do have a lot of hobbies, and I've long been skeptical of these sort of devices and the social media that is often, utilized on them. And watching those videos really made me think, not just that I'm in a good position right now, but that in order to remain in this position, I need to kind of shield myself from this kind of technology. Um, but then at the same time, I thought that, even when I used to use this technology quite a bit, I always had hobbies. I always had things that I liked to do and was engaged with. I think of it sort of the same way that I think about drugs. If you ever read that post, Drugs Are Lame, that I made, there was never a time back when I used to use drugs where I felt like it wasn't under my control, or like I wasn't consciously making a decision to do what I was doing. There were many times, either when I was going on breaks or I just didn't want to do something, when, I had it in front of me, even just on my desk for months, and I didn't touch it. It was always this sort of thing where impulsivity wasn't a factor because I always had this understanding that I didn't want to feel bad. That was the thing that always stopped me. When I would go an extended period of time using one thing, and by an extended period of time, I mean like some of the rare instances where I used something multiple weeks in a row, or, in very rare cases, an entire month, every day doing the same thing. Um, I always ended up stopping at the end of that because it ceased to be as fun as it once was, or fun at all, and the reason why I initially started was gone then, because the whole goal that I had was just to have fun and to enjoy myself. And so I was like, well, this is sort of worn out its welcome, and then I stopped. And then either didn't ever go back to it, or if I did later, it was in a much more limited way. And of course now, I haven't used anything for over 2 years, just because I feel that that's the more prudent decision, and it's the one that makes the most sense for my life. But there was never a point when I felt like I was out of control, or like I wasn't doing something simply as a choice. I think there were a lot of people that disagreed with my choices, but um, that isn't the same as, you not consciously making the choice yourself. Um, and I think that's important in the context of this discussion, because the kind of phone addiction that I see often discussed online, and the kind that I have witnessed from people IRL, um, is not something that I've even experienced with drugs, because what these people will describe is like this impulsive, incessant need to use their device, even when the use of their device is clearly hurting them, even when the use of their device is clearly making them feel like worse, less fulfilled people. And that's not something I can really understand, because, when something starts to make me feel bad, I just stop doing it. Like, I really don't understand how this is that difficult for people to figure out. If something is making you feel bad, you just stop doing it. But for some reason, there's something in like a certain type of person's brain where if if there's something in front of them that they think could have even sort of a nominally positive impact, even if the overall, impact that it ends up having in the end is bad, they will go for that thing just because they thought that some sort of positive effect existed. Or maybe not in some cases. Like, I think a lot of the time they just don't even think about it. They just do the thing without thinking. Like, that's such a crazy concept to me. You know, back when, I mean, it goes the same thing for the subject of drugs too, because back when I was doing that, I was always heavily researching every single thing I was putting into my body. I was always measuring it really well. I was looking into the testing side of things. I would have never even gotten into it unless I had known what tests were. I would have never tried any of that stuff, because I had always been very, very scared of the idea um, that because these things are from an illicit market, they're completely unregulated, which just terrified me. Um, there was always sort of this thought in the back of my head like, okay, I should take priority. I should try to be safe. And that extended to even just stuff like my sleep. Like, okay, I shouldn't do this today, or I shouldn't do this at this hour because I'm not going to be able to sleep, or I'm if I'm going to do something that might impact my sleep, I should have something to counter it so I can go to sleep. Like, I was always thinking about all this stuff, not because I was intentionally trying to, but because I literally don't know how to not think about this stuff. Like that's just the default for me. It's the same thing like when I made the video talking about how I constantly check my watch. Checking my watch all the time and segmenting my time, organizing my day is just the default for me. It's not something that I choose to do. It's not something that I was told would help me out a lot. It's just intuitively what I do, you know? um, Cleaning up after myself after I finish doing something. That's not something I have to think or force myself to do. I just do it so that the mess doesn't pile up, you know? Which, ironically enough, there were certain drugs in the past that sort of negatively impacted my willingness to do that, which is one of the many reasons why I don't do that stuff anymore, because it just made me feel like I was far away from myself, from who I am, but I digress. Um, so I don't understand the mindset that certain people have towards their phone or towards digital addiction, because if you're aware that it's hurting you and you ostensibly don't like to feel bad, why would you do something that's continuing to make you feel bad? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Um, and so I have a really hard time understanding them. It's the same thing with like, I mean, I don't want to rip into my, different people have different ways of, like different setups cognitively, right? Like they've got like different firmware, they've got different specs in many cases, and that leads to certain outcomes, right? Um, but I just like when I'm in the kitchen and I see something that could be a hazard to someone, or could be, dirty, or like, okay, I'll give you a better example. When I'm in the bathroom and I open up the cabinet and I see my mom's toothbrushes in there and it accidentally falls out into the sink, I don't just pick it up and put it back in the cabinet. I turn on the water, I wait for it to get really hot, and then I put the toothbrush underneath the hot water. And the reason I do that is to get rid of the germs that might have ended up on it from the sink. Germs aren't something you can physically see, but they are reduced or limited by heat. So I do that as a precautionary measure to protect her when I notice these things. And I notice these things all the time. But I just feel like there are certain people that sort of aimlessly go through their life not thinking about really anything. Like they don't think about anything. They don't, like, they just go from impulse to impulse to impulse, and that's their entire life. I can't imagine living like that. I feel like I would kill myself if I operated that way with the knowledge that I have. Like if I went from being like this to being like that, I don't know how I would be able to overcome the hurdle of of um of depression in the wake of that. I don't know how I would do it. Um I just I look at the way these people live and it just seems so unintuitive and depressing to me, because they have no concern for optimizing their well-being or their environment or looking after others. I mean, how could they? How could they care for others if they don't even care for themselves, you know? I mean, that just seems like such a miserable way to be. And I don't understand it. It's difficult for me to understand. And I've been exposed to a lot of people who are like this, um, and I've been accepting of them and respectful, but on a personal level, just in terms of how I feel on a day-to-day basis, it is very odd to me. Um, and I get these thoughts in the back of my head, kind of thinking, oh, like, I don't know about that. And you don't really say it out loud because you don't want to be rude or just rip into somebody for how they are. But, you sort of take a mental note of these things when you notice them in other people, where it's like, oh, okay, all right, that's, yeah. So I don't know. I try not to be judgmental, but, on some level, it's hard not to be in certain situations. Like, you see the carelessness or the lack of conscientiousness so many people have, and even if you're trying not to be judgmental, you'll have trouble understanding. Like, I'll end up having trouble understanding, even if I don't wind up thinking, well, like, okay, that makes you kind of bad. Like, I used to think that way about people a lot more. These days, I don't really, just because you mellow out over time. Like, you stop seeing things as big of a deal. But um, I do still find them really difficult to understand. I've tried to do like research into genetics and neuroscience to try and figure out why some people are like this, but a lot of that stuff is still emerging. We still don't even have all of the proper tools to look at people's brains, let alone fully understand them. So there's a lot to be desired in those fields. Um, and with the information we have right now, it could be contradicted in 20 years, when a better way of conducting the research emerges. So um, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever be satisfied in my quest to understand some of these tendencies in humanity. But I try not to be frustrated with them, even though I do find a lot of these facts about the world quite alienating. Like, when I saw those videos that the woman in the analysis video was going over, I thought a few things. One of them was, okay, thank God I've never been like that. Number two was like, okay, well, I really don't want to end up like that. How can I prevent that? And then number three was like, what's even going on in these people's brains? Like, just trying to figure it out. And like, maybe I'll figure that out, maybe not. But it is strange. Personalities are strange, brains are strange. I know that I don't want to become estranged from myself as I am now, at least not in like a negative way. If I became significantly better, that would be good. But if I became worse, well, obviously that would be bad. And I want good things rather than bad things, just like everybody. At least I thought. Maybe that theory is coming into question with the existence of some of these people, or maybe it's outside of their control. Maybe it's an executive functioning thing. I have no idea.